Unfortunately, some people think that Jewish rituals are archaic and have no relevance to today's day and age. I feel bad for anybody who thinks that way, especially if they're Jewish, because they're missing out on so much. In the morning, when I put my tefillin on my arm and on my head, I'm symbolically binding and dedicating my strength and my intellect to God. On Rosh Hashanah and on the days leading up to it, when I listen to the shofar being blown, I'm awakened from my spiritual slumber. On Sukkot, when I go outside into my sukkah, I'm reminded that my protection in life doesn't come from the roof over my head, it comes from God up in heaven. On Hanukkah, when I light the menorah in the front window of my house, I'm proclaiming to the world that I'm proud to be a Jew. And on Passover, when I eat matzah, I'm simultaneously tasting slavery and freedom. But perhaps precisely because those rituals are so rich and so deep and have so many layers and layers of meaning, that at times we may overemphasize them at the expense of the other half of what is asked of us by God. The laws that regulate our conduct bein adam lechavero, between man and man. The laws that require us to look out for our fellow. Some of those laws are contained in this week's Torah portion. If you pass by a lost object, you can't hide from it. You've got to go pick it up and protect it and make sure to get it back to its rightful owner. If you see your friend or even your enemy or rival loading or unloading his animal, you've got to lend a helping hand. These laws are incredibly important. I always like to remind people this time of year, as the high holidays are approaching, that there's a common misconception. Many people think that if you go to synagogue, to shul on Yom Kippur, and you pray, and you do a bunch of chest bumps. No, not that kind of chest bump, this type of chest bump. Then all is forgiven. But that's only half true. You can be forgiven for your infractions against God, but if you've wronged someone else, you're not forgiven for that by praying on Yom Kippur. You've got to seek out and get forgiveness from the person whom you wronged. Why are these laws so important, so all important? Let's go back to the beginning, the very beginning. We're all familiar with the story of the two brothers, Cain and Abel, Cain and Hevel, and how Cain killed Hevel. And then God asked Cain, "Where's Hevel?" And Cain responded famously, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" It wouldn't be much of a stretch to argue that the entire rest of the Torah was written as an answer, a resounding answer to that question. Yes, you are. You are your brother's keeper. And if you have an opportunity to help out your brother, your friend, your neighbor, and you don't, then you someday may well hear the same words that God said to Cain. "The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground." Instead, we have to take a page from Abraham's book. Abraham was in his tent healing from the circumcision that was performed on him at a very advanced age. God himself came to visit Abraham. But Abraham interrupted his conversation with God, leaving God behind, so to speak, because he saw some potential guests coming towards his tent. And he knew he had an obligation of hachnasas orchim, welcoming and hosting those guests. The rabbis tell us that you can learn something from every single person in the world. But think about it. If that's true, then that means that each of us has something that we can teach every single person in the world. You have something unique to share with every person in the world. That is powerful. And as we know from Spider-Man,
remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
So let's take that responsibility towards our fellow man very seriously.